So, modifiers for Gauntlet are out by now. I want to take the time to share what I've learned over many gauntlets and playing a ton of hardcore SSF by now. By no means an expert, but I feel like I'm experienced enough by now to give some valuable advice on how to safely do maps and map in a gauntlet or hardcore SSF environment, and go over a bunch of stuff regarding how to get specific items, how to progress actually gear, and how to do this very carefully, assuming you have a decent amount of game knowledge, assuming you made it through the campaign, obviously. So if you believe that you will survive that and actually arrive in maps, then I invite you to join me on going over a bunch of mechanics and different items and pitfalls that people typically fall in with that, because the normal game, especially trade and the softcore trade thing, it's very simple. You just rush red maps and nothing matters until T14s. That's basically it. You can't really do that here. You will probably die. You need to be able to get certain things without being in high level maps, and it's with a few things there are pitfalls of that. But yeah, if you survive this, brutally enough, you arrive in these maps. If you look at those, since, I don't know, 1 or 2 gauntlets by now, map modifiers are not actually that bad. Obviously, there's less damage taken, which doesn't really matter. You're going to play a meta build, most likely, so damage is not a problem. It's whatever. The increased damage is just like a slight additional damage mod, essentially on every single map. But typically is a bit more problematic is the increased attack and cast speed. So you have 2 additional damage mods on every map. Just feel like it's that way, right? Just remember every single map also has this. If you roll them, just try to imagine 2 more lines with that. But overall, the map mods are really not that bad. Not even the red map ones are that terrible, to be fair. But anyway, this is for goal for you if you just want to get levels. Let's start with the lab thing. Most notably here, this is still technically part of leveling, but the Merciless Labyrinth is level 68. So that one, the third lab, is already white map tier basically. So you get rid of the campaign thing, which makes the Merciless Labyrinth not the worst place to actually farm up some gear. You don't even need to kill Izaro, right? You can just repeat the area before Izaro. It's free. There's no key required. You can just go in there. It's not the worst place, even though there are pocket pants and things, but it might not be the worst thing. Just keep that in mind. Izaro itself, reminder, even though it's more about leveling, his slash ability with sword, and as soon as he has a sword, that's a projectile, so it will be affected by additional proj. Stuff like that. Everything else is like a lot of physical damage, so it's always the same, right? If you get hit by the big Izaro thing, you die, so don't get hit. And also keep in mind that the goddess, yes, Izaro is 2 bosses in one. She has these barrage abilities. She has 2 of them. The one summoning skeletons doesn't kill you. The one targeted at you will kill you. She will not cast that if you're close to Izaro. Right, that's the secret to Izaro. Just act like he's Helek, run in a circle, and you can never die. Move away from him, and the goddess will do the barrage and potentially kill you. So really watch out if you're not close to Izaro. That's that. Also, keep in mind you can check what Izaro you have on PoE lab. So maybe you want to move your Uber lab at some point. For actually mapping. As said earlier, typical trade softcore stuff is you just don't really care. You just alch everything, get as many maps as possible, get +1 to map level, map tier as much as possible. Just rush tier 14s with minimal gear, nothing matters. Get to tier 14s, 16s ideally. Drop good bases and then start crafting and do stuff. You can't really do that here. So what I recommend for someone that just wants to level and is not super confident in this is you run white maps for quite a while, honestly. You can level up there really long. Probably level 80 or something like that, at least 75 easily without ever alking them. Just run the magic and really carefully roll these maps with easy mods. Run white maps, you're fine in that. Maybe then progress to yellows if you're confident. Again, you don't need to immediately alk them. It's fine to run the magic for a while. Yes, you don't get the points for the Atlas. You don't need them immediately. You still unlock the map to be dropped, stuff like that. And for the vast majority of players, you're never going to touch a red map, ever, right? At some point in XP progression, you kind of need to do that. You probably also at some point need to run your yellow maps rare. You can use regals if you have some. It's a pretty rare currency, you're going to find out. But you can roll them very carefully to be like a one mod magic map, and then regal it into a 2 mod map. So it still counts as rare and counts for completion, so you can do stuff like that. That's quite a possibility, honestly. And then get some completion in. Be really careful with that. And you can always come back to white maps, for example. Start alking them if you're super over-leveled, and do that later. And yeah, if you want more XP and you need more XP at some point, you might need to start running red maps, and you can also just run the magic and never get to completion. That's what you do. Patience is like the big one here. I wanted to quickly touch on XP. Obviously, there's a little tool in Path of Building. It's quite hidden, but it's pretty nifty. Obviously, if you do higher content, at higher map tiers, you get more XP because the stuff in it gives more XP, essentially, to you. But in addition to that, there is a experience multiplier, and there's an interesting tool here. If you set this to manual on just like a new build in Path of Building, if you set this to manual and put your actual current character level in there, it gives you this tiny little list, which I cannot point at with my mouse, but it tells you, like starting from 68, pretty far down, there's like tier 1, 2, blah, that's the map tiers. And it tells you how much or what the experience multiplier is you get. So if you are a level 68 character in this example, if you run a level 60 area, so it can't be a map, you would actually not even get the full XP anymore, right? Because you're too far above it. Interestingly enough, that is also true in the other direction. So if you are a fresh 68 character and you run a tier 10 map, you actually get still more experience because, there's more monsters, the monsters are higher level and stuff like that. But there's also a multiplier applied on it. You're not getting the full value. It works in both directions, interestingly enough. And for example, now, if you are 75, you're still getting the full multiplier on a tier 1, right? Obviously, a tier 10 would give you more XP because of the monsters. But yeah, there's like an additional modifier here, and you can always check how efficient, essentially, the lower tier maps still are. If you go to 80, the tier 1s start to really fall off, right? So you basically need to run at least a tier 5 to have full efficiency, even though less general XP there. With 85, it starts to get really interesting because you already need to run a tier 14 to be at efficiency keep, right? So maybe, I don't know, if you run a tier 8, 80% might be still okay. And that only gets worse up there, like level 90. If you're already level 90, even on a tier 16, you getting below 60%. Just keep that in mind. You can check a little bit here to feel better about what map tiers to do. Before you go there, league mechanics. Let's quickly go over league mechanics. Each and every single one of them, quickly, like, should you run them or not? The main point here is just because a mechanic is in your map doesn't mean you need to do the actual mechanic. And it also has some implications on maybe some mechanics, if they show up, you have the choice to not do the map. You can just leave if you want to, and you want to play it extra safe. So in general, Abyss, not that dangerous. Maybe don't go into the deep dark hole down there if you stop doing that and not meet the boss, which can be tricky if you don't know how it works. Other than that, you probably want the jewels and you probably want a belt. You always have the chance or the choice of doing it over leveled, right? Come back to lower tier maps if you are highly over leveled and do it then, makes it way safer. But in general, you probably want a Stygian Vise and you probably want jewels, especially for shock immunity. Affliction, just don't touch it, ever. Strong boxes, you can very easily identify them now. Do that. And even if you do that, if you open it, move away immediately. Every single time, make it a habit. Don't randomly die because you can't read or you miss some line on it and you get ice over it and die. Also keep in mind, maybe you need a freeze flask to do this, all right? Just in case you misread, get frozen anyway, just get freeze immunity on a flask, something. But other than that, strong box is great. A lot of extra monsters, pretty safe in general. In combination with this one, rogue exiles can technically be pretty brutal randomly. So there is a choice for you. You can say, okay, don't open a box with them. And you can also make the choice of leaving a map if there are rogue exiles in there. In general, they are somewhat safe, I would say. If you meet one and it seems slightly dangerous, just, I don't know, pause the game, log out or something like that. Or yeah, make the choice to not to leave the map every single time you meet them. Bestiary, kind of same thing. Can be really dicey, can be really weird in tight spaces. If you meet a lot of them, I don't know if there are a bunch of them in an area, like in a room or something like that. Maybe just don't do that. Do you really need that many beasts? You can also choose to not do the map or skip all of them. You can also should be able to go back to Act 2, right? Something like that, or just on the campaign way. Maybe you have the ability to already get a few yellow beasts, so you can do flask crafting for the ceiling effects, which is the bleed one. But yeah, other than that, you should not need beasts for anything, especially really big ones you're not gonna get anyway. Betrayal, also a potential skip for a lot of people if you're unsure if you will live them. XP is great in the safe houses, but at the same time you have to deal with the syndicate dudes. So yeah, Tora can easily rip you apart, the Fist dude as well. So very careful. Absolutely, you can make the choice to leave the map as soon as you encounter betrayal. If you want to do that. Beyond, you shouldn't encounter at all unless you somehow spec into that. So probably not a good idea. You really don't need that stuff. Blight, absolutely great, right? If you want oils, might be a candidate for overlevel, come back to it later. So you can get an Anoint, so you don't randomly die to weird lanes. Also a thing about how tight the area is. Typically it's good to have a tight area for Blight because the chests stack on the top of each other. But on the other hand, it also can get really dicey. So probably skip until you're way overleveled for the area. Breach, probably never open that. Delirium, just never open the mirror. It's in general more dangerous. Just plan without cluster jewels. It's a short event anyway. If you really want clusters, then probably not the worst idea. But yeah, might also get you killed. Delve in general, in maps, you can obviously click the thing, nothing happens. You get some cards if you're lucky. Other than that, there's one case later why you might want Delve, but in general, pretty dangerous mechanic unless you're really familiar with that. Domination, that's the shrines. Great. So many extra monsters and you get buffs, so that's really, really good. Just keep in mind, there's no reason to rush the shrine with a billion monsters around them. Be careful with small rooms, right? Clear it and then click the shrine. But other than that, great mechanic to have. Essence, it's a low wide map thing. Be really overleveled. You can even farm them. That should be fine for like really wide map content. Maybe just don't overdo it and get like the ones with like a billion things on it. That's still bad. But other than that, dangerous mechanic, but should be fine if you're heavily overleveled and should be farmed in low level maps anyway. Expedition, it's a bit of a weird one. Typically great for gear, but at the same time, for it to actually be worth it, you need a bunch of investment on the tree, on the Atlas tree. You need to do that in higher level maps for it to be worth it. I feel like, especially in short events, like if you do this uninvested in wide maps, you can do this a lot and not get anything from 2gen. So for me, for this specific event, pretty much a hard skip. I'm never going to touch that. And that's fine. Harbingers, there's no reason to touch them. I'm not gonna get a fracturing orb fully thinged anyway, and investing heavily here is also dangerous. Harvest is my go-to. Feel like it's your best bang for your buck to actually get gear, right? Should be fine. Also, a thing you can do this heavily over leveled, and then invest on it on the Atlas, which you still kind of need to do. And ideally, you do this in higher maps, but yeah, maybe a bit too dangerous. So yeah, definitely an over leveled, over geared situation to do that. Heist, not really a reason to do that. I feel like technically, if you can get high level contracts, you scour them, you could go and get, I don't know, jewelry bases maybe, but other than that, it doesn't seem worth it to deal with it. Incursion seems somewhat dicey down there. There's really nothing in there you need, and there's a bunch of monsters, and it can get a little bit scary and overwhelming, so probably hard skip. Legion, pretty much a hard skip, and as well, there really isn't a big deal about it. Maybe for offerings of the goddess or something stupid you could do that, but typically more like of a hard skip. Mercenaries, honestly, they got nerfed a lot, but I don't know, that seems like a huge invitation to go back to the beach for like 2k or so for some like stupid item. I think these are super bait, and if you're somebody struggling to get levels and you're really hoping to get level 90 and you need assistance there, then just never talk to them. Just forget they exist, and you're fine. It's probably not worth it. The chance of you killing yourself is really, really high. And baiting yourself because you see a cool item and then you just die anyway. Rampage doesn't really exist. Ritual for me is a hard block on the Atlas. As soon as I can, I beeline the block for this mechanic. I don't want to deal with tiny balls that chase me and kill me and do weird modifiers and corpse explosions everywhere. Just hard block it, forget about it. That's fine. A Sanctum, I mean, I don't know if you really need Divines for some reason, because you get that far. 100% out of scope for you. If this video is useful to you, then you're not gonna do Sanctum because you don't even have to craft. Sentinels, just skip it. Probably it's nice, but yeah, it's not rewarding enough. You don't need any of that. Skip it. Settlers in maps like there's the ores. Honestly, probably useless unless you really want to do something with the King's March thing and you think shipping is a good idea, which I don't think it is for a short event, but fair. If you want to, keep it. If not, then probably even block it on Atlas so you don't get accidentally killed by these tornado things. Tempest you shouldn't encounter. Tormented Spirits, I mean, obviously, rares with them can be dangerous, bosses can be dangerous. Kind of avoid them if you can. Be really careful if you meet one that actually is inside a rare monster or even a boss. Ultimatum, pretty much hard skip. Warbonds you're not gonna encounter anyway, and they don't matter. That's like all of them, kind of in order, and what I would do with them. One of the first challenges you're gonna encounter is Überlap. First of all, Überlap is somewhat dangerous, so you probably want to be heavily overleveled. But on the other hand, you need an offering to actually enter it. Sounds super simple, but it's not gonna be that easy for a lot of people. This has a drop level of 1, right? It's immediately available. Problem is, it doesn't just drop, right? So typically what you need for that is the Trial of Ascendancy, right? The things in the map. But they only spawn in tier 6 and above. These are yellow maps. So obviously you can scour them. You can get some extra chance on the Atlas if you really wanted to, and probably just get that. That's fine. If you can get the maps. That's like one way of doing it. If you're too scared to enter yellows for some reason, or you need another way of getting this safer, in theory, right? You could get it here, like from enchant. Oh no, these are actually gone, right? Are these drop disabled? I'm gonna figure this out live. Oh, these are. Yeah, so you're not getting this from. Forget about the Legion thing. Doesn't exist anymore, so that's fine. Yeah, one obvious thing would be Ritual. But I'm hard blocking Ritual. I'm not doing that, so because that's gonna get me killed. So this is out. However, another way seems to be the Delph cities. So I don't know if it's both. that Abyssal City and Wall Outpost, or if it's only one of them. And I'm also not entirely sure if these also need to be like 73 or something area level. I don't think they need to be because of the drop level here. So maybe you can do low level Delve cities to actually get these without ever touching a yellow map. Just keep in mind, if you go into Delve, right? And the Delve is below level 67 or even lower, the campaign mods are gonna apply again. So maybe you don't want that, right? Make sure it's like between 68 and 72, I guess, as low as possible. So yeah, there might be a way to get a trial thing. How's it called? Here, Offering of the Goddess from the Delve cities. That might be possible. Somebody would need to confirm that actually knows that these drop at low area level, but that might be a possibility. But yeah. Keep in mind, this does not just exist, you need to actively get it. For another thing, oils. A bunch of rather cheap Anoints and stuff need a opalescent oil. So that one is 73, which is also a tier 6 map. So you kind of need to do a 70 or probably actually a 73 because it comes from these chests and they don't get plus item level, I guess. It's not like rare monsters, who knows? But probably you need to do blighted maps or do blight in maps, but it's not very likely to drop you an opalescent oil. What if you need that? Probably blighted maps, and they probably need to be yellow tier, which makes them way harder. And you probably want to roll them as well for rewards. So yeah, it can get pretty dicey. Do this if you're really, really over leveled. That's kind of my idea. Be just careful if kind of the distribution is weird, the layout is weird, it's fine to leave. Don't lose your character over it. Do this late, super over-leveled, then you can get your Anoint. Just plan without one until then. And keep in mind, applying multiple Ember Oils to your blighted maps make them really, really easy in comparison, even though you can still die. So that's for oils. Keep in mind, early Anoint is probably not going to happen, which is fine. I don't know, the big one, honestly, for people getting baited. I probably didn't even make that very clear in my last video about the Slammer, because I put all the influence, right, the Eldritch influences on the items. But also, to be fair, like specifically, how do you get a lot of them, right? Like altars appear, or they start essentially in tier 14s to be able to farm them, but you're most likely not able to farm tier 14s, especially not sustain them with altars until really late, right? So you need to just keep in mind that you need to rely on, essentially really to rely on the embers that drop randomly, and it's not that many. So these are really valuable. And then you need to really consider what item you apply them to. Right, you have a low chance of hitting anything, you don't have many of them, and if you swap the item, it's gone. So yeah, they drop naturally, that's pretty much your only source. You could technically do something like Tujin or whatever, but then we're back on the expedition discussion. And Ritual, do Ritual have them? Maybe they do, but Ritual kind of hard block. So there really isn't a good source of those outside of tier 14s. If you know one, let me know. So yeah, there's that, keep in mind. No implicits for you, probably for a really long time. Also no currency exchange. In general, about items, a little bit of a reminder how this game works. You pick up stuff from the ground very early, and after that only bases matter, so you can craft on them because you're never gonna find a really good item. Problem is, this depends on item level, obviously, right? Like for a helmet, it's very easy to get maximum life because it's like it only needs item level 64. That's why you find high life ones already early in campaign. For resistance, you still would need an 84, right? It's a bit worse for these body armors, right? If yours is like level 50, that can already be a 6 link in theory, but it can only be tier 6 life. Right, for tier 1 life, like the big one, you need 86, 81. Same for the resistances, right? You can only have like 30 fire resistance. So yeah, the point is, in order to actually play the game and make gear, you need a good base type on a high item level while being unable to run maps or areas that actually drop this item level. How do you deal with that? And honestly, the answer is a few mechanics in the game just give you a higher item level than you deserve, essentially. One of them, and he's going to be one of your best friends, probably, it is Faustus. Rather recently, I was about to say like 2 weeks ago, but that one lasted really long. He has introduced the gold gambling. And gold gambling, and I actually looked up here what the real deal here is. It depends on your character level. That's the point. And apparently it's your character level and your character level +3 that gives the range of items that you get, like item level, from Faustus. So that means as soon as your character is level 83, you get 83 plus item level from him. So you can just gold gamble your bases. It's in addition, they roll pretty nicely, so maybe you just get an item, but if not, you get the base and you have crafting bases, and you do not need to run an area 81 plus to get an 84 item, which is amazing. It means you just need gold and XP, and then you can get bases and you can use them and you can craft on them, and then you can run higher level maps, which is really, really cool. This works really well for armor stuff. It's weaker, obviously, on axes, for example, or weapons in general, because, you know, the base type matters so much in there. For like boots, you have 3 base types that are good enough. For an axe, maybe not, because you only want one specific one, or you want a specific one, something like that. Same for jewelry, can be really tricky. I don't think he can do Stygian Vise. So if you need one of those, he's useless. And for example, for rings, you are very likely to want amethyst rings as a base to craft on. You will never craft on anything else. So if you buy a ring from him, what are the chances for it to be a amethyst ring? And it's not that high. So it's not that great for weapons and jewelry, but for everything else, it's absolutely amazing. Use that, get high enough item level. You can also use them very early just to fix gear, to get very basic gear, but kind of save your money until your item level is high enough, or your character level is high enough, so you can actually start gambling here for good bases. Really cool. Another one, obviously, Gwenin works similarly. If you actually end up doing expedition, that can be great to get some bases, or at least not that bad to get some bases. Might be worth it to Gwenin if you're really desperate for it. And the same as with Rock. Like if you somehow, for some miracle, decide to do a spell suppression character that actually needs that on gear, that's crazy enough, but fair enough, you do you, then you probably need Rock anyway to get you the suppression gear. But yeah, he also gives you higher item level stuff based on character level, so you can get specific bases from him if you end up doing expedition and end up successful with that. That's basically the 2 mechanics I remember that are really good at that, providing you these item level things. Another note on item level towards sockets. And that's how you get a 5 link or a 6 link. And it's Faustus, and it's gold gambling. Because interestingly enough, by the way, I didn't really realize that ever. The minimum item level for 6 sockets is only 50. And if something can have 6 sockets, then it can also be a 6 link. So in theory, you could start gambling for a 5 link or something on level 50, which isn't really the smartest idea. It's probably worth it to do a little bit of that early into maps, so you just have a 5 link, and maybe it's not on a terrible base. You can do that, you can invest in there a little bit, but at some point you probably want to do this on high item level, right? Wait until you're 84 and then try again, get your next 5 link. If you're super lucky, even a 6 link. That's still pretty rare, to be fair, even on a good base. So probably settle on a 5 link, but do that again on like as soon as you hit level 84 or 83 or something. Then chances are really good to get a 5 link on a base you actually want, and then you can craft in it because of the item level. That's really cool. That's your way for 5 links. To be fair, if you need it on a weapon, then good luck, I guess. Like there's no good way, I feel like, to get a 6-link. You can gamble with using fusings, right? And you most likely lose. So the only reliable way, I feel like, in hardcore SSF in an event setting is you bench craft it, you farm like a crazy person, and then do the bench craft. Everything else is too unlikely to fail. That is that. On here, again, jewelry, for example, I wanted to show, I believe on rings, interestingly enough, the requirement for maximum life is really low. So it's not like you need an 84 or something to have good life here. And even if you're looking for, which is likely on rings, also additional chaos rest, 65 already gives you a tier 2. So it's not that bad to have lower item level rings and still craft on them. That's quite worth it on a 65, for example, which also can still have maybe 72 if you can, so you can get a tier 2 elemental resistance on top. But yeah, you can get pretty good rings and good enough rings with lower item level bases. Another thing you probably want, at least typically, is a Stygian Vise, which you can get. The only way I actually know how to get these is pretty much the spires and going into these to this lich here. It even says here. I didn't see anything else on the wiki as well, how to get these. But yes, Stygian Spire, I show you in a bit how to spec into that on tree as well. It's very easy to get these bases, but you need to do Abyss for that, and you want to do that anyway for the jewels. So that's how you get these. And since you need to do it manually, also again, probably the item level is not going to be super, super high, but you just need to deal with that. It helps a little bit that on the tree there's a +1 item level for these Stygian Vises, which is cool. Another thing is not actually the scouting reports. Obviously, you can spec into that, get more of them, but these can solve a particular problem, and that is crafting recipes. It's very easy to think, oh yeah, we'll just craft this and that. The biggest culprit on that is the minus mana cost to channeling things. That was very easy to get in past leagues, because you just needed to do Betrayal, which is slightly dangerous, but okay, fine, and find Elrion. And you can do this in low-level maps. You cannot anymore. All these recipes are on the Atlas now, obviously, and this should be, like the minus mana one, should be a T16 recipe. So I think Cold River or something. And it means you actually need to enter a Cold River, get to the boss, and click the thing. If you have the map, that's probably fine. If you have sufficient level, you just jump through, sheet charge through all of that. You don't even need to fight anything. Just get the recipe done. But how do you even get that map if it's a T16? You need to do a bunch of T14s then and stuff like that. So crafting recipes in high-level maps are really not that accessible and difficult to get. However, there's a little trick with this. It takes a bit to set up, obviously, and you need to progress a lot. But if you use a Explorer Scouting Report, it will reroll your correct missions, all 3 of them, white, yellow, red, to only contain maps you have not yet completed. So if you have completed every single white map, and what should it roll, right? And what it will actually do is it will roll maps that are naturally a yellow or white or red, essentially, and just downgrade them. And you end up with a, I don't know, previously owned tier 8 plus only map, and it's a tier 5 or 4 or something like that. So you can turn higher level maps into lower level white maps using this trick. I'm not entirely sure if you need to complete 100% of the white maps for the white map category to roll higher level things. Maybe it needs to be every single one, probably not every single one. And at the same time, if you have completed all whites but not all yellows, can it also downgrade a red map into your whites? I'm not entirely sure. So maybe you need to complete all whites and all yellows to get access to the red ones, but still you can get access to typical red maps without ever running red maps, which seems important. If we then look at Atlas, this is some kind of ideas towards Atlas. Just keep in mind, Atlas points come from completion, and you're probably gonna have way less completion, and you're gonna have it way later. So if you look at this like as a skeleton, that's already 22 points in order to get 20 more, right? And you have 42, but you still need to find 22 points. That's a bunch of maps, and there are not that many white maps actually in the game. And it's not like you just have a list and you can just pick every single one of them. You need to sometimes find them. So can be a little bit tricky. And this is somewhat risky because it doesn't take anything else. There's like nothing useful for quite a while. You have to decide. That's what I'm gonna aim for. And the main thing here for me is what I'm gonna do instantly is gonna go here, and then I'm gonna block ritual, so I don't die to ritual. That's kind of the thing. And then I just snake my way up according to like a future tree to get 20 extra points, which is really cool. I'm gonna do that. This is just an example tree. Obviously, I'm gonna have 110 points, and you absolutely not gonna have 110 points. But to illustrate what you can do with extra points, for example, Abyss, speccing into this stuff here gives you more Stygian Spires chance, and even makes them the item level +1, which is really cool. You can spec this, and also maybe a little bit of here. This combination alone drops or creates a bunch of these spires, makes it likely enough to actually farm a base. Maybe you only need one, and then you craft, and then you unspec this, but that's surprisingly effective, I find. Other than that, other mechanics, obviously, map sustain here and here and here, really cool, right? You need to figure out yourself how much of that you need. Kirak. If you plan on getting red maps via Kirak missions, you probably want a bunch of Kirak and scouting reports. So you might want to take that. There's obviously also generic nodes here, like doing strongbox stuff and shrine stuff for buff and just monsters. That's more like of a generic choice. And in my case here, or before I forget it, one of the very early ones, obviously, get the Nico buff. Right, especially if you already have the Nico stuff here, just get the Nico buff. It's good. It's just helpful, which is really cool. And the other one for me is just harvest. Right, that's my choice of how to actually craft gear, and it's so useful in every regard. Obviously, if I spec into that, I can still choose my own difficulty, right? I can choose to do this in white maps for a bit, right? Maybe then at some point alk these white maps to do it a little bit more there, and then maybe go into magic yellows and do a little bit there. So I can choose my own difficulty with that. But yeah, that's the one mechanic I'm interested in, to make gear. I hope that was somewhat useful to people. That's kind of my knowledge part about different mechanics and how to get that stuff and how to solve these problems. And I hope I saved some people a bunch of headaches because they never thought about how inaccessible different stuff actually can be in a hardcore setting and in a gauntlet setting and in a setting where you might be super stressed out and scared to do anything. But if you follow these kind of like carefulness, right, just like be patient, do maps, magic, be very careful about mechanics you interact with, accept that you can come back over level to do mechanics in lower content, and it just takes you longer to farm, for example, a harvest. It's just like, I don't know, maybe you get only 100 yellow juice per map instead of 200 or 300. So that's a difference in 1, 2, or 3 Reforged Chaos clicks, but you live. So if you only go to 6p, make sure you actually reflect that in your gameplay, and you plan accordingly to what you're not gonna have. And you need to plan around that. Especially these guys. I tell you, like the amount of frustration people get with, oh yeah, they just need to do the implicits and they don't have these things because they cannot access them. It's astonishing. Anyway, I hope you have a really good gauntlet. I hope this was useful. Bye.